Usually when you walk through a local park, there's just this expectation of um, static scenery.
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
you see a big oak tree and your brain just automatically categorizes it as wood or leaves or honestly just a background object. It's an evolutionary shortcut, really.
Right, it's a way to save energy.
Exactly. We just don't have the cognitive bandwidth to process the intricate details
Hmm.
of every single leaf and branch we walk past. So we just see the concept of a tree and keep moving.
It just becomes a fixture, like it's just part of the furniture of the outdoors.
Yeah, totally.
We treat it as an entirely inanimate object because its movements and processes happen on a time scale or at a microscopic level that our human senses simply aren't equipped to detect. We assume stillness equals lifelessness.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today, welcome to the deep dive, we are jumping into a narrative that completely shatters that illusion.
It really does.
We are looking at this charming piece of magical realism titled The Oak Tree Highway, a secret underground journey. And our mission today isn't to just read you a bedtime story about kids playing in a park.
No, not at all.
We're going to explore how this narrative brilliantly translates the staggering, invisible biological complexity of living systems into a tangible, urgent reality.
It's so clever how it takes the mundane, just a twisty oak tree in a municipal park, and transforms it into a bustling metropolis.
Right.
It forces a complete perspective shift, teaching a really profound lesson about interconnectedness. Ultimately, it changes the tree from an it to a where.
Oh, I love that distinction.
What the-
Into aware. That's perfect. So to understand this inner working of the tree, we first have to look at the mechanism the story uses to pull the characters and by extension, you, the listener, out of normal reality and into this micro world.
The threshold.
Exactly. We start with two best friends, Mia and Jordan, and they're playing hide and seek.
A very classic, relatable setup.
Yeah. So Jordan runs behind the biggest tree in the park. The text specifically describes it as a giant, twisty oak with thick roots and a trunk as wide as a car.
Which is a very deliberate, grounding detail. The author establishes the massive, imposing scale of the macro world before we shrink down. It highlights the sheer physical mass of what we usually just ignore.
Totally. So Jordan leans against his massive trunk, and suddenly there's this loud creak.
A hidden door slowly opens.
Yes, it reveals a soft, golden, growing spiral slide. Mia runs over, sees it, and impulsively just jumps right in. She shouts, "Wee!" But Jordan hesitates.
He gulps, takes a deep breath, and then finally follows her down. Swoosh, spin, whoosh.
Now, I want to look at the character dynamics here because I don't think it's just that standard trope of the brave kid and the scared kid. Leaning against that tree and falling, it's like accidentally finding a secret trapdoor in your own living room.
It's entirely disorienting.
Right. It shatters your perception of a familiar space. Mia is the fearless catalyst, sure. But Jordan's hesitation feels much more realistic to how we actually process paradigm shifts.
Jordan's reaction mirrors how we as a species handle new scientific discoveries. When you realize the world isn't what you thought it was, there is a necessary moment of cognitive dissonance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You need a second to sort of mourn the normal tree before accepting the magical complex one. But what's fascinating here is the specific mechanism the author uses to ease that transition. The literal golden slide.
It's a great image. But why a slide instead of, say, a magical elevator or teleportation spell, or even just falling down a dark hole?
Well, a slide acts as both a physical and a psychological threshold. Think about the physics of a slide. It's a one-way trip driven entirely by gravity, and fundamentally, it's smooth.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it transports the characters and your perspective as the listener from the macro human world into this hidden micro ecosystem without a jarring, disorienting shock.
It's a gentle, continuous transition. It gives the brain time to adjust to the shrinking scale rather than just snapping to a new reality.
Exactly, and the author deliberately makes it glow with a soft, golden light. This descent into the underground isn't a terrifying plunge into the dark unknown. It's warm and inviting.
It's not scary at all.
Right. It prepares the reader to learn something vital rather than be frightened by unfamiliar dirt and bugs. It signals that the subterranean world is a place of illumination.
Which perfectly sets up where they land. They get to the bottom of this twisting slide, BOIN, landing softly on a patch of moss. And here's where it gets really interesting.
The micro-metropolis.
Yes. They are inside the tree, but they don't just find sap and wood pulp. They find a tiny forest city. Glowing mushrooms lighting the paths, acorns shaped like literal houses, tiny creatures bustling around doing important work. And then, we meet my absolute favorite detail, Chippy.
Ah,
The
yeah.
chipmunk wearing a tiny vest.
The self-appointed keeper of the oak tree.
I just delight in the visual of this hyper-organized local tour guide rushing over in a little tailored vest to welcome the tourists. Or maybe like a city mayor managing a wildly complex subterranean burrow.
It's a very fun image.
But I'm going to push back on this tree as a city metaphor for a second. Because a city implies a top-down engineered infrastructure. It has a mayor, zoning laws, a deliberate design. Isn't a real ecosystem entirely decentralized and chaotic?
That is a very fair critique.
Like, does comparing an oak tree to a city actually give us the wrong idea about how biology works?
Well, in reality, ecosystems are highly decentralized. You're right. There is no mayor chipmunk directing traffic or zoning the acorn houses. The order emerges organically from millions of chaotic, self-serving interactions.
Okay, so why use the metaphor then?
Because from a narrative and cognitive standpoint, an ecosystem is incredibly difficult to conceptualize. It involves thousands of overlapping, interdependent relationships that are constantly in flux.
A city, however.
Yeah.
You intuitively understand a city. Oh, so it's a bridge for our understanding. We know a city has workers, it has homes, it has infrastructure. It gives us a mental framework to place all these complex elements.
Yes, exactly. When Chippy explains that the oak tree is home to birds, bugs, roots, and hidden tunnels, the story uses these whimsical elements, the glowing mushrooms, the acorn houses, to manage our cognitive load.
Right.
It forces the realization that a tree is not just a single piece of wood, it is a bustling community.
Yeah.
And frankly, for a mature reader, the aha moment shouldn't just be the realization that bugs live in trees. We all know bugs live in trees.
Yeah, that's basic science.
The real revelation the city metaphor points to is the sheer scale, communication, and complexity of that community.
Right. It's not just a passive apartment building where insects happen to rent space. It's an active, communicative network.
Take chemical communication, for example. In a real oak tree, if a specific type of caterpillar starts chewing on a leaf in the upper canopy, the tree doesn't just sit there and take it.
It fights back.
It actively identifies the chemical signature of that specific caterpillar's saliva. The tree then releases highly specific, volatile organic compounds into the air.
Wait. It identifies the saliva. It essentially tastes what's eating it and sends up a flare.
A highly targeted flare, yes. Those volatile organic compounds act as a chemical signal to parasitic wasps in the area, essentially telling them, hey, your favorite caterpillar is right here on this branch, come get it.
That is wild.
The wasps fly in, attack the caterpillars, and the tree is saved. It's an active chemical warfare defense grid. So when the book presents the tree as a highly organized city with a vested chipmunk keeping order, it's an allegorical shorthand for a biological system that genuinely operates with that level of sophistication and self-preservation.
That actually blows my mind. The tree is literally calling in air support.
Pretty much.
Which leads us perfectly into the next discovery in the book. A city of that density, with all that communication and activity, cannot survive without importing resources. How exactly does a tree feed its top branches and maintain its defenses? This is where Jordan points out the glowing roots.
Right. And Chippy explains that these roots are the tree's transport system, moving water and nutrients from the deep soil all the way up to the leaves.
And Mia perfectly distills it. She calls it a tree highway, to which Chippy just smiles and agrees. Now, I initially pictured these glowing roots like a major city subway system, or maybe a glowing fiber optic network buried under the streets, pulsing with the central resources.
It's a natural comparison.
But based on what you just said about the tree's chemical complexity, a subway system feels almost too mechanical. The train does the work in a subway. Inside a tree, how does the water actually move? There's no mechanical pump pushing the water up.
This is where botanical reality is almost stranger than the magical realism in the book. The story visualizes this transport system as glowing golden light, which is a brilliant artistic choice because botanical processes are entirely invisible and silent to us.
Sure.
But the actual physics behind Mia's tree highway is staggering. It relies on a process called transpiration, working alongside capillary action in the tree's xylem, which are the microscopic tubes running up the trunk.
Okay, break that down for me. Transpiration. How does water defy gravity to climb a 100-foot oak?
Well, it's less like a subway system where cars move independently and more like a city's plumbing network running in reverse where negative pressure from the penthouses is actively siphoning water up from the basement.
Oh, wow.
Imagine water molecules not as loose, sloshing liquid, but as a chain of tiny magnets holding hands. Water has high cohesion. The molecules stick together very strongly.
Because of hydrogen bonds, right? The
Yeah.
oxygen of one molecule is attracted to the hydrogen of the next.
Exactly. So you have this continuous, unbroken, microscopic chain of water molecules holding hands all the way from the deep underground roots, up the trunk, through the branches, and into a single leaf at the very top of the canopy.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
When the sun shines, a water molecule at the very top evaporates off the leaf into the air. That's transpiration.
And because they are holding hands, when that top molecule flies off into the air, it physically pulls the molecule below it up to take its place.
Yes, it creates a negative pressure, a vacuum, that is so powerful it pulls the entire chain of water up the tree. As one molecule leaves, it drags the next one up, which drags the next one all the way down to the roots, which pull more water out of the soil.
That is a lot of pull-up.
A single large oak tree can pull hundreds of gallons of water a day up into its canopy purely through evaporation and the molecular cohesion of water. No moving parts, no engines, no pumps, just solar power and physics.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
And it makes the author's visual choice so much more profound. I mean, by making the roots and the water flow glow with a pulsing golden light, the story takes this abstract, invisible fluid dynamic and makes it thrillingly visible.
It does.
It translates the silent kinetic energy of transpiration into something the human eye can finally comprehend. You can literally see the life force of the tree moving through its veins.
And we shouldn't forget the other half of that highway system. It's not just water moving up, it's nutrients moving around. Underneath that tree, connected to those roots, is a massive fungal network, mycorrhizal fungi.
Ah, right.
These fungal threads act exactly like the fiber optic network you mentioned earlier. They connect the roots of the oak tree to other trees in the forest. The fungi mine minerals from the soil and trade them to the tree in exchange for the liquid sugars the tree produces through photosynthesis.
Wood Wide Web.
Precisely. It's an entire underground economy. So when Mia calls it a tree highway, she is fundamentally correct. It is a massive, pulsing infrastructure of trade, communication, and resource distribution.
But of course, understanding the highway system is one thing. Testing that knowledge is another. The narrative doesn't just let them marvel at the glowing roots. It suddenly drops a catastrophic infrastructure failure right in their laps.
Right.
Out of nowhere, Rumblili, the ground shakes.
Chippy immediately panics. The water flow is blocked, and he explicitly states the tree needs it to stay strong and healthy.
The kids look at each other, and without missing a beat, they say, "Let's help." They follow those glowing roots until they find the problem, a tangled section completely blocked by dirt and pebbles. Jordan starts moving rocks. Mia clears the soil with her hands.
They get right to work.
And I want to pause on the physical scale here to put you in their shoes. If they are small enough to be inside this micro-city, walking alongside a chipmunk, moving these pebbles is probably like deadlifting boulders. It's grueling manual labor.
It really is.
It's not a magical spell that fixes the tree. It's physical intervention.
It grounds the magical realism in physical reality. They shift from being passive observers of the magic to active participants in the ecosystem. And this leads to a fascinating structural choice by the author regarding environmental action. Well, as soon as they clear the rocks, the water starts flowing again with a loud G-L-U-G-L-U-G.
And the tree reacts instantly. The roots glow brighter immediately, the leaves far above rustle happily, and the text even says the whole tree seemed to sigh with relief. Chippy cheers and explicitly validates their effort, telling them they saved the tree.
It's a very triumphant moment.
Now I have to ask, isn't this immediate gratification a bit misleading? In the real world, if I clean up a polluted creek or remove a dam, the forest doesn't instantly sigh and turn green. It takes years.
You've hit on a crucial tension between storytelling and ecological science. The author employs an immediate feedback loop here: clear the rocks, the tree sighs in relief. In the real world, as you said, ecological restoration takes decades.
Yeah, it's a long process.
A forest operates on a geological timescale, while humans operate on a frantic day-to-day timescale. This mismatch is often why conservation efforts struggle. We don't see the immediate results of our labor, so we assume it isn't working.
We get impatient. If the tree doesn't glow brighter today, we assume our effort didn't matter and we give up.
Precisely. But structurally, this rapid feedback loop in the story is vital for the reader. It trains the human brain to link invisible actions to long-term environmental consequences. By speeding up the timeline and making the cause and effect undeniable, the narrative bridges the gap between human impatience and geological timescales. It solidifies the neurological link that direct physical intervention yields tangible healing. It's an emotional training ground for environmental stewardship.
It teaches the concept of consequence without the burden of waiting a decade to see it. The crisis is averted, the highway is clear, but they can't stay in the micrometropolis forever.
No, they have to go back.
Having restored the balance, it's time for them to return to the human world. Chippy points them back to the slide, leaving them with one final instruction. Remember what you learned.
So they hop back on the slide. They zoom back up, popping out of the tree just as the hidden door completely closes behind them. They're back in the normal macro world park. The park looks exactly the same.
But they aren't the same. Their internal perspective has been permanently altered. Jordan looks at the seemingly normal oak tree and wonders aloud, "Do you think anyone else knows about that slide?"
And Mia just smiles and says, maybe. But now we know something important.
They look up at the tall branches swaying in the wind and they make a pact. Just 4 simple words. Let's take care of it. Mia realizes trees are way more important than she thought, and Jordan concludes they are giant living systems.
So what does this all mean? It means the journey of knowledge is complete.
Exactly. Think about how this started. A simple, almost mindless game of hide-and-seek evolved into a masterclass on understanding living systems. That final realization from Mia and Jordan mirrors the exact knowledge journey this deep dive is meant to provide to you.
Because knowledge ultimately dictates responsibility. That is the core theme here. Ignorance allows us to treat a tree as an inanimate object, as static scenery.
Right.
But once you understand the staggering complexity, the chemical warfare defense grids calling in wasps, the molecular chains of water defying gravity, the underground fungal economy, the teeming metropolis inside the bark, you naturally arrive at the conclusion that it must be protected. You cannot unsee the micrometropolis.
You really can't. Once you know the trapdoor is there, you will never look at a tree trunk the same way again. It fundamentally changes how you interact with your environment. And that leaves us with something really profound to chew on as we wrap up today.
A shift in how we walk through the world.
Exactly. So as you go about your day today, I want to leave you with a lingering thought. If one ordinary twisty oak in a local park contains a bustling, glowing metropolis and a vital, pulsing highway system pulling hundreds of gallons of water into the sky,
Yeah.
what invisible, complex worlds might be operating right beneath your feet every single time you step out your front door?
It makes you wonder about every blade of grass.
It really does. Look closely today. You never know where the hidden doors are.